Good morning. So we're up here in the Highlands, and one of the things I'd love to explore today is the idea of followship. So there's lots of talk about leadership and leadership models and what you need to do. And there was a great article that came out earlier this week from up in Silicon Valley about the idea that the CEO is the chief empathy officer. Now, the piece with that is to be able to run a team and run a team well, and whether that's team at home, where you're looking after your home, where it's your business, whether or not it's working within someone else's business, understanding the people you're working with is really, really important. Now, I came out of the military, and from that aspect, the people that we work with, you're living literally cheek by jowl with for a lot of time, out on operations, high tempo environments, quite high stress. But the bond that creates can be really, really strong and lasts for a lifetime. And when I'm now working within the civilian sector, I see some of those bonds are really strong amongst the civilian teams too. And from that perspective, I think when we've been through periods like we're going through now, which is, a very turbulent time for many, a time of reflection, exploring what works well for us and what doesn't work well for us, we also look at who we trust. So who amongst your team do you trust? That doesn't have to be a hierarchical thing. That can be as far as someone you know's got your back, where you know you would do anything for somebody else as well. There are people I've only just met that I know I would go above and beyond to look after, because when I've met them, I've just immediately started to trust them. And I just think I definitely come with a trusting mindset. I travel a lot normally, and I will walk into a room and I will trust first and ask later. That sometimes gets me in a bit of a pickle, and maybe it's just that I've got a lot of experience and exposure of reading body language, trying to understand, the energy within a room, looking for the combat indicators of when something is awry. It doesn't always work perfectly, but it's served me pretty well so far. And often that's the same when do I want to work with somebody? And that can be, do I want to work for them, where I would be the follower? Or do I want to work with somebody else where they'll be looking to me for direction? They'll be looking to me to be able to start actually being the one setting the tempo, setting the cultural environment in which we work. And for some that is called leadership, and for others I guess it would just be getting on with things. But the idea of followship is, I know that for the people I trust, I will do anything for. I will literally go above and beyond, working the 23-hour day if I need to, being there if they need me to look after their families, answering the difficult questions, doing the hard pieces of work that normally I wouldn't want to do, but I will go and do them because I trust their judgment, I trust them to look after me, and I trust them to be doing the right thing wherever they can. Doesn't mean they're perfect, doesn't mean that every decision they've made is right, but it means I know they're going with the right intent. And when I'm working with other people, I hope that is what they see from me, is I'm not perfect every day, far from it. But do I go in hopefully with the right intent, where I go in trying to do the right thing? Yes, I hope I do. Like I say, do I always get it right? No. Is any leader ever going to get everything right? No. Is any follower always going to get everything right? No. And the way in which we will respond and deal with our teams when they don't do something right is almost as important, if not more so, than when they've done something right. How you treat somebody when they've had a cybersecurity breach. Do you go and sack them, which happens to some, or do you go and work out what went wrong? What environment were they in? What had got them to the state? Or what was it about the attacker that meant that they breached your firewalls, your protocols, your SOPs, your standard operating procedures? Was it a human error? What was going on with that person? And that's often the same in every facet of running a business and running a home. If something goes wrong, it's not just one person's fault. There's usually a little bit in everywhere. So what often then happens, I think, as you go from being either the leader or the follower, is that you move on to fellowship, and that's where you will be able to share some really intimate moments with somebody, be that the growth of a business, the failure of a business, you've got a project that's going well, or something that you're needing to be able to work really closely together, and you start to become more fellows than just a follower and a leader. And that might appear maybe a little egalitarian, but the best ideas don't come from above. The best ideas don't always come from the bottom. The best ideas come from allowing every single solitary member of that team to be able to have their say. And again, that's not meaning that you're turning it into a Chinese parliament. It means that you're allowing everyone to have an opportunity to share their ideas, share their thoughts, and at the end, then coming out with a very specific, this is the way forward, this is how we can go and work now, and then everyone else knowing that they've had their chance to pitch in and say, and then they're moving forward. The example I often give is when you're working out how you're going to evacuate a building, you'll get the specialists in, you'll get the members of the people who within the building who've got a say as far as who understand the makeup of the building, the business structures that are there, the other factors to be considered. But when you've actually then got a fire, you're not busy discussing how you're going to get out of that building, you're just going to make it happen. So you have a period where you can discuss, and then you have a period where you just action, where you know there's been collaboration in the past and you're developing that trust, you're developing the collaborative aspect of decision making. But then when you've got very short timelines and you don't have time to discuss, the empathy and the trust is already there, and so they will just do what you ask them to do when you ask them to do it. And interestingly, arguably with the coronavirus, is when people were being asked to stay at home, the trust wasn't there. Then they put the NHS in front of us all. The trust was definitely significantly higher with the doctors and nurses inside a hospital asking people to stay at home than the politicians asking everybody. That's just a trust thing. Who did we trust? Who had we been encouraged to trust? There's so much discussion about fake news, different political intents, that maybe the trust just wasn't there. Whereas when your boss told you to go home, did you go home? Probably. When you were asking your team to go home, did they listen to you? They will have trusted your judgment, and they know that at the end of the day the risk lies with you. So this is also a risk thing. And finally, on to friendship. So I've been getting back in touch with people this week, going through my own contact book and my own contacts area, and realising that actually a lot of those details were out of date. And that meant that I hadn't been in touch with people. That meant I hadn't been keeping those contacts alive. I hadn't been nurturing what at one stage had been Followship, had definitely then at different stages developed into Fellowship. And for some people now, I would consider them without question friends. So to realise that actually for those people who have looked after me so well over the years that I now don't have the correct contact details for them, that maybe that we've fallen out of touch, this has been a real opportunity to get back in touch, to be able to work out how are they? Is there something that I can now do as a coach, as a resilience and leadership specialist? Is there something I can do to offer something back? And there we go, that's kind of my musings for a Sunday. I was exploring as the sun came up, and I was looking through who the people were that I'd been working with and talking to this week. Some have definitely been areas where I follow them. They are the ones that have got more knowledge than me. Some have been where I'm potentially the person that they follow. I'm being asked to give direction for the team I work with to make sure that we are developing the business in the right way to hopefully serve people into the future. And then there are fellows. There are people I've worked with in the past. There are people I have knowledge that I can share with them. They have knowledge that they can share with me. And then there are friends. There are people who've lent on me this week that I haven't spoken necessarily to in a while, but they've lent on me for some really privileged positions of helping them with family decision making, financial decision making, strategy for the future for themselves and for their business, and having some really deep and frank conversations. And I feel that's a really, really privileged position. So, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for looking after me in the past if you're one of those people. And if there's anything I can do for you now, anything at all, discussions about how to look after your family, how to develop your business. Somebody petrified yesterday, not petrified, maybe that's a slightly strong word, very concerned about what on earth is going to happen to their business in June, July time. They work in the travel industry, out on the outer isles, and how on earth can they get tourists and visitors safely back into those arenas that rely really heavily on tourism, but without putting the population base at risk? Well, funnily enough, the NBC, nuclear, biological and chemical kind of training kicked in. I used to study that when I was younger, a little sad that is, maybe. It was my area that I was really fascinated by, and so it was an area I was able to discuss with them. It doesn't mean I'm the policy maker for the whole of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but it meant I was able to at least have a chat with them about considerations, areas that they could explore, where to find specialist advice, And I think at the end, I was really surprised at the latent knowledge that was coming out of my head. And they were very surprised that actually sanitising a home, sanitising a lodge could actually be easier than they'd thought. And you know, we've all worked in environments with malaria and dengue fever when we go to Africa, and nobody thinks twice about it. Working in places with Ebola, some of my peer group have had to deal with the Ebola crisis, sitting in the mess at breakfast time discussing all the different measures that we're going to have to be put in place to keep both the UK force and the multinational force and the locals, for in Sierra Leone for example, safe and secure, and how to serve them all well. There's many different experiences that we've all lived through. So for many, yes, this will feel very uncomfortable and difficult, but come and find those that can help you, those that you trust. And I may not be the person who has that knowledge, but hopefully I can help you find someone that does. So there we go. So exploring followship, fellowship, friendship, and trust, and how integral trust and honesty. I can't bullshit somebody that I know something that I don't. That's really unhelpful. And so that also comes with trusting that someone will tell you when they don't know something. Somebody will tell you something when it's wrong and where they know. And there are definitely people in this world that know more than me and can often turn around and say, oh, Alice, are you sure about that? And I really, really appreciate those opinions. So there we go. A rather long musing from the Highlands today, but it's a really, really, really important arena to explore. Followship, fellowship, friendship, trust and integrity. Ciao for now.